Hi, I'm Reverend Lori. Some people have asked about homeschooling their children. I have some experience with homeschooling, but my sister-in-law, Keith's younger sister Anne, has been homeschooling for several years. So following this clip is an interview I did with my sister-in-law about how to begin homeschooling, scheduling, curricula, co-op groups, socialization, and other facets of that process. She makes the point that she is able to stay at home with her children full time. I think that's an important point. I did homeschool for 1 year while I was working part time and going to grad school full time. But my youngest is now 28. So I asked Anne to talk about her experience as she homeschools her children now and has been the director of her homeschool group. She organizes schedules for the group and lesson plans and outings and special classes. The interview is about 45 minutes long with all the sections included. And after talking to her, I'm feeling a bit disorganized. I think I'm going to go alphabetize my books, but I hope you enjoy our conversation. So, this is Anne and I talking about homeschooling. Um, so, today I'm going to be interviewing my wonderful sister in law, Anne. That's Keith's younger sister. And she's homeschooling her kids. And I thought, with all of the concern about going back to school, it might be beneficial to talk about how she's been homeschooling for several years, and I thought it might be beneficial for us to talk about um, how she set that in motion and what that looks like for her and her family. And Anne said I could tell her age. And my sister-in-law is 53, and she's been married for 20 years to Will, and she has two older children, and she's homeschooling her younger children, Anna Ruth, who is 11, and Samuel, who is 13, and they're awesome. And I actually have my collage of her children with their Aunt Tomoko that I keep in my office. So we'll start with, so if you just want to, Anne, if you want to just give some of your background, um, where you went to school, where you lived, how you came to live in, what is it, Westphalia?
Westfield,
Westfield, okay, yeah. Illinois, the big city.
big city, yes.
I don't mean to
Well,
sound condescending. That was,
no, no, that's fine. we actually we live out in the country, so we're we're very rural here. So I was born in Houston, um, Houston, Texas, and we moved quite often as we were growing up. So we've lived in several states. We lived in Ohio, New Mexico, um, and I went to a public school until the middle of 8th grade, um, and then we moved. So my parents made the decision to homeschool
oh,
me for a while. At that time, there was not very much out there in the way of curriculum, but they ordered books, and I started working from home. Then I went to a couple of Christian schools for high school. So um, I have lived in Illinois for almost 30 years, which is hard to believe. Yeah.
mm,
So I moved to Illinois. I moved in with a wonderful family, the Peach family, and so that was my first experience in Illinois. So we began homeschooling. We're starting our ninth year now.
wow.
So, so hard to believe, but um, yeah, it's been an adventure, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. So,
Your kids belong to a homeschooling group. Did you do that right away, or
no, I didn't. We began when Samuel was in kindergarten. Um,
oh,
so I ordered curriculum from a company called Abeka, and it's just sort of a very traditional curriculum. Um, it's excellent. It does come from a very sort of fundamentalist Christian worldview. So we began doing that, and I taught them to read using phonics, which which is, I think, uh, the right choice. It was the right choice for us. So,
yeah, I've used Abeka and I think it's fantastic. One thing I liked about it was I am terrible at math, and it had step-by-step instructions where I could actually understand how to do and get them started on that path, and then they were able to
yeah.
do it with their father's help. but but I could sort of um, make out what I needed to do from the uh, ABC, the Abeka program,
Mm-hmm.
the math, the algebra, especially the first
Mm-hmm.
algebra book, um, made it so I wish I had had it when I was in seventh grade. Yeah.
Right. So, yes, we were on our own for the first few years and maybe 2 years. And I realized that we needed fellowship, we needed support, and especially the kids needed social interaction, they needed friendship. And so I reached out to someone in the community, and we joined a co-op in Casey, where we lived at the time.
It was an already established homeschool group.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
So we met just wonderful people, some of whom are just have become our dearest friends. Some of our dearest friends. We actually attend church with our pastor's wife, homeschools her
oh,
children, and that's where we met. Uh,
oh,
yeah. So, but yes, I realized I'm the type of person who is fine being at home. You know, I love people, but I don't need really to go out a lot and
mhm.
socialize. But I realized that it was very important for the kids, so
Yeah.
I
I
did
completely
that.
understand that with the pandemic. Like I said,
Yeah.
I see some people who are so sad, and I just think, oh, I get to stay home and write. Oh, yeah.
I, yeah, I thought of that often, how it must be very difficult for those who are, they thrive, you know, off of social interaction every day with many people. So,
Yeah, and I think, I know I've always tried to be, I forget which is objective and which is subjective. I try to be subjective about and realizing that my children and other people have that need where somehow it's sort of missing in me. Um,
mm-hmm.
yeah,
I,
I'm
I,
sort of that
yeah,
introvert, but yeah.
I,
So, so you've been homeschooling 9 years. Oh, I wanted to ask you what made you decide to homeschool?
so, so we had intended to send our children or our child at the time. I was expecting Samuel, and I was working in the school district in Charleston.
Mm.
Um, we went to school. It was Halloween. I worked all day and came home and went into labor that evening. And so he was born November 1st. But I just thought, well, this is what we're going to do. I had just kind of accepted that. And somehow, Will and my husband Will, we began talking about the possibility of homeschooling. And he just let me know that he would be 100% supportive of that decision if that's what I felt to do. So I've always been really thankful, that
Right.
because he's our, you know, sole provider financially now. I don't bring in income or very little. So, but he was willing to, to do that. So I appreciate that. But we really felt strongly that it was the right choice for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also had seen things in the school, working in the school district that were troubling, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to me. And I don't want to just protect my children from, the world or from life, but I also think it is understandable that people would want to,
Yeah.
you know, educate their children at home.
I
Um,
think too, it probably, well, talking about the sort of the introvert or being able to stay at home, um, it might depend on the child too. I remember
mm,
in Little Women, Joe talked about how Beth was always able to stay at home and just loved to be at home around the house, and she could not understand that at all.
yeah,
And so it probably depends. I mean, I've wondered if, maybe I had some social anxiety when I was young. I just hated school, and
mm,
it was more the social aspect. I just felt unprotected, I guess. But
yeah.
um, yeah, it probably depends. And then I wondered too about, you know, some people homeschool for religious reasons or because they live out, you know, very rural, like you do. Also, sometimes I think children can have issues. I know, like I took a few years in homeschool just because I felt like there were some issues with my child, and it
Mm-hmm,
worked out really well.
yeah.
But um, I mean, what else did I want to? Oh, I wanted, yeah. So I'll ask that later. Well, so what is your schedule for homeschooling? Or I don't want to cut you off if you want to um, add to. I know you sent me the article about homeschooling in Michigan, and some of those things I didn't know. And
Mm-hmm,
some things I think, like Thomas Jefferson said, they should be self-evident. And I hear people talk, and they really don't know that they can homeschool, or they'll say, "Oh, I don't think they allow this or this in my state," and they
mm-hmm,
really don't know. So
mm-hmm.
that was a really good condensed. I'll add that um, to actually know what is permissible. But so okay, I'll go ahead with that. What is your like weekly schedule for homeschooling?
So our weekly schedule is we begin. So let's see. We can begin as late as 10 in the morning, depending on what we have to do. When you homeschool, of course, you don't have all the extra time that it takes to get to school and move between classes and do all the things that go along with going to school. So um, we we have school at home 4 days a week, and we meet with our group beginning this month. We're meeting on Thursday, so we have school together with a group 1 day a week, and then the other 4 days we're at home. So, and of course, if we need to be in earlier, that's fine. That's part of uh, one of the great things about homeschooling is you have that ability to be flexible with your
Mm-hmm.
schedule. We've even had times where we've uh, worked on our schoolwork in the van as we're going down the road. Well, not me, but the kids. Um, so that's a great thing. too. You have appointments and things that you need to do. So
And you can just take them along,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
I heard someone say, and I don't remember when I did it. I heard someone say they usually do 3 to 4 hours a day. Um, are you guys? Do you do that, or
It's
what's your average?
yeah. Well, the older they get, the more time it takes to
Oh,
complete what we're
mhm.
doing. So it would be more than that for us.
Do
But
you have? I mean, do you have goals as far as testing or college prep or sort of that you focus on for? Um,
well, Anna is she's beginning seventh grade this year actually, and Daniel's in eighth. So we're definitely looking at how to put a transcript together. Um, Samuel will be taking one class where he'll be getting a high school credit this year, just one that I know of. But we're definitely looking in that direction, and we'll be doing practicing for the SAT, which will come up, for him just in a few years. So
mhm,
that's definitely something that's on our radar that we're working on. There are many tools available though for high school transcripts. Um, as far as assessments and testing, there are many things that you can do to have your child, um, you know, to have those assessments when you're
mhm,
homeschooling too.
mhm.
So,
Is that usually with a local school district, or is it more of a state?
and but there are other ways to do that. I have a friend who recently had her children assessed and tested over Zoom, and
Oh,
a teacher from Wisconsin, so
mm.
that
Oh,
administered the test. So that's something that you can do now
mhm.
too.
What? How much? Can you give a ballpark figure of how much it costs to homeschool per year per child, or does that
And
differ by grade?
it's there's a wide range as far as cost. So you can enroll in some of my friends are enrolling in a writing course. It's an excellent course. But I believe for that course, it's $700 for the year. That's not something that we're able to do.
Right.
Um, there are many ways to purchase homeschool, curriculum. There's just such a wide range of costs, but it doesn't have to be terribly expensive.
Mm.
We've, in years past, um, have paid when we began. I think it was $350 for our,
Yeah. Hmm.
supplies and books for the year.
Hmm.
But I guess it depends on where you go for your.
Yeah, I think
For
that's
your
about what we paid too.
mhm.
And yeah, I I remember when I was homeschooled. One year, I homeschooled all three of my children, and I was at Barnes and Noble, and in those sale books, I found three uh, science books or history books on pandemics, and we studied pandemics for science that year, and they loved it. And
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
rats that brought the typhus. Oh, they
Right.
thought that was so cool. But yeah, some of that I loved. Some of that I would have done it. I loved homeschooling my kids, but my kids didn't enjoy it as much as I did.
That's probably true here as well.
So what else? What does the rest of your schedule through the week look like to accommodate for homeschooling? I mean, as far as keeping, I don't want to sound condescending, but keeping up with, household stuff and other doctor's appointments and church and other things you have
Right.
to do.
Right. It's just finding what works best for each person. Um, if you spend 5 hours a day, then you have a certain number of hours left, and you have to figure out a schedule and um, when to do those other things that really need to be done. So it's, often the laundry is, waiting. So
Yeah. What a coincidence. No, no. What else was like? Oh, what are your kids' favorite subjects? And then I wanted to ask you, you teach a specific subject in the homeschool co-op, right?
well, in the past, I taught arts. I had a little art class.
Oh,
That was fun. Last year, I was a director in a homeschool community for seventh graders. So I would introduce all of the subjects that we were studying every week and facilitate discussion
oh.
and do all the fun paperwork and all of that that goes with it. But this year we're doing something different. We're still following sort of a classical model of education, but we are branching off on our own this year, so it's a bit different. Um,
You mean as the whole group?
yes, we formed a new group. There's
Oh,
just several families. There are 5 families that are meeting together.
oh.
So, and with classical education, is you really need to have discussion time. So you need
Mm-hmm.
you need other students to discuss with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah, I think that synthesis of thought is so important, or I found it was in my academic journey. I think, I can remember when I was teaching at Tomball College, there were people that would come from other countries, and there were women that had not, like, we had to work with them to say, you're going to have to learn to ask questions in class and make eye contact, and some of that socialization that was really difficult for them. Some of those things you really don't think about that make a difference in uh, how you do or success or just maintaining in going to college or in the collegiate setting, which is so different than high school or um, homeschool, whatever. There's not a good, that's what I guess that's why they have college prep classes, because there's not a lot of college prep done in public schools, I don't think,
mhm.
or it wasn't for me. I was a little stunned, but um, so you use Abeka. What else do you use? And do
we
you
haven't
write some of your stuff
we
or?
haven't no we haven't used Becca for several years.
Oh, okay.
So a few years ago, we learned about um, the classical, I guess you would call it the classical model of education. So it's you probably know all about that. It's just a different approach. Instead of maybe lots of textbooks, worksheets, tests, and quizzes, they focus on, if you don't mind me talking a little bit about it, uh,
No, I would like you to. I wondered if there was a specific curriculum or if you sort of had to put it together yourself.
well, you can find many. There are quite a few classical companies out there
Oh,
that use this type of material now. But our group is putting together from different places. We're putting together our own. Um, we have our own schedule. So, but basically, it's we talk about the trivium. So there's the grammar stage of learning, which is just loading facts and dates and who, what, where, when, and then um, the dialectic stage, which is uh, that's where we're at now in our home. when they, become argumentative,
Yeah.
they want to push back and and argue and debate, and so there's that stage, and then the final one is the rhetoric stage, where they have learned to articulate their ideas and hopefully do so beautifully and respectfully, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
so we use the five common topics, Socratic discussion. So we ask questions about, defining a term, comparing, circumstance, relationship, testimony, all of those things when we're discussing every subject, uh, which is pretty exciting to me. It's so different than just learning some facts,
Yeah.
repeating them, moving on, forgetting what you've learned. It
Yeah.
just
I
becomes
sent
so
you
much
that.
more meaningful.
Yeah, I sent you that TED talk by Ken Robinson where he talks about um, is education killing our kids' creativity, and he talks about that sort of developing the gray matter that's necessary to um, for like emotional intelligence or yeah. Um,
Another
that's
thing I'm excited about this year is introducing them to debate. Um, I think especially now, I mean, it's always been this way, but with the climate in our country of just division and um, turmoil, it's so important to be able to put yourself in someone else's position, to see where they're coming from, to understand their point of view, and to be able to have that dialogue respectfully. I just, that's one of the things that I'm really excited about this year is helping our students to understand the importance of, you know, just being respectful of others'
yeah.
opinions
Hmm.
and loving other people. You know,
Hmm.
not just I love the people that agree with me, and if you don't, how could you possibly have an opinion different than my own?
Right.
So I'm kind of passionate about that.
How and what are the five? Um, what did you say? What did you call them? The five areas of
Oh, the five common topics that
yeah.
we're
Okay,
talking.
common topics. Okay.
Mhm. So,
Yeah. What are they?
the first one is definition. So when you're discussing something, it's important to define it. One person might have a different definition, right, than I do. So that's the first step. Let's
Hmm.
define this, define the term, and then compare. Compare with something else. Comparison is fun. You can pretty much compare any two things, right? Or um, find what we have in common. You find the point of, yeah, where we have things in common. Um, Circumstance. So that would be what's going on around this issue. What's if we're talking about like in our literature, they read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and we were discussing Edmund and the White Witch, and with circumstance, you talk about what's going on around these characters, but also what's going on in other parts of the world at the same time, and how does that relate to this? So that's an interesting thing to think about. When you're studying history, it's it's incredible to me the things in history that I never realized while this was going on, or this
Hmm.
time in the Bible over here, this this was going on. So
Yeah.
And then relationship is cause and effect. You know, what caused this to happen? Uh, what effect did this action or this thing have on others? And then testimony is just an expert witness or an account, you know, of a thing. So for that story, it was, well, the author of the book. Um, if you're looking for an authoritative source, you could use the Bible, or you know, just, so that's what that is about. But we use that for everything.
So that's if you read a story or studying history. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to use this, and my sermons are going to be much better. But I
By the
love.
way, I love your sermons. But
Oh, thanks. I love C.S. Lewis. How he um that I know you've probably heard his conversion experience, where he talks about he kneeled and prayed when he gave in and said, God is God and God is real. And I kneeled and prayed, probably the most dejected and resigned Christian in all England. And then he said, and all at once I felt like a man of snow beginning to melt. And I always thought that just described it so well. Just, yeah, no one can explain it for you, but um, I like C.S. Lewis. Let me see what else or you can, if you have other things, you're really knowledgeable about this. You should give a lecture or something. You should, yeah, go around and talk to people. Maybe you do. But,
I'm still learning, but I love to learn, and you know, and the
oh,
more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. But
I had a professor that had been probably the most educated, smartest professor I ever had. He was at Harvard for years and years. And one day we were walking to lunch or something, and I said, they say the more you know, you learn, the less you realize, the less you know. And it was funny because he just kind of stopped and said, no truer statement have I ever heard, or something like that. And I thought, yeah, you would know because you've learned. He one time said, I said, I hear you speak several languages. And this was his response. He blushed and said, only 5 or 6 fluently. So yeah, he
that
was a
all.
cool, he was an ancient history professor. I loved him. But do you feel that there are different needs, like academic, social, or maybe something I haven't thought of, for children who begin homeschooling, the homeschool path at different ages? I mean, versus kindergarten versus 12-year-old. Usually if someone does it when they're older, begins homeschooling when they're older, it's usually there's some issue in school, I would think. I don't know. But.
Right. Yes. That that's an interesting question. So my younger children, they've never known anything but homeschooling. But I do have friends who have, they began, you know, when their children were older. Um, and there are so many reasons why, you know. Um, Sometimes it's just not working out for their child in public school, and it's just the best thing to take them out.
Yeah, have you seen
Um,
certain commonalities? I mean, certain issues or struggles that they go through with that?
well, I know I'm thinking of a friend of mine whose daughter just struggled in public school. There was conflict with teachers and with, um, she just didn't quite fit the mold, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so homeschooling has been a great thing for them. She's really blossomed since she came home and was able to learn at home. So I think it would be, I'm thinking of my own experience. For me, it was somewhat of a relief to not have to go to public school.
Yeah.
And I was there until 8th grade. So um, for some kids, I think it would be a struggle to be used to being around lots and lots of students, every day, because it is quite different being at home with just mom. There are so many groups now, though. There are so many opportunities to meet with others that it's kind of it's not the weird isolated homeschooler people, you know. Well, maybe, but it's not like it used to be. But
Yeah.
now we have the COVID issue to deal with, and how do we safely meet together in this, time that we're in? So
Are you meeting, or do you what are
we
your
are
protocols?
we are planning for now to meet. It's a small group. We keep it under a certain number. We don't know really what the future holds for that,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll be ready to adapt, and
Mm-hmm.
we might have to meet, over Zoom like we did the last half of this past year. So we'll just see what happens.
Do you run with a traditional school year, or do you start later, or?
We are we are almost exactly uh, on their schedule this
Oh.
year.
Mhm. Do you make those schedules now since you're the
Yes,
director?
we make our own schedule. So
Mm.
that's another nice thing
Yeah.
about homeschooling.
And what have I forgotten to ask that's important too? And what advice would you give families who want to begin homeschooling, or is there David Letterman had the top 10. What are your
Yeah.
top three things that need to be in place, maybe? Or
Well, I would say first of all to assess your children, what their needs are, um, where they're at academically. So uh,
are there certain tests that will do that, or
yes, you can have your children. Yes, they can take standardized tests. You can find out exactly where they're at. Also, with a lot of the curriculum, like our math curriculum, they give you a test, a placement test. So they take that
oh,
test, and then you can find out where they're at and what they're ready for.
oh,
So that would be a thing to do. Also, uh, you need to look at uh, what type of homeschool you want to do as far as curriculum and what your focus is going to be.
mm-hmm,
Is it going to be very structured? Is it going to be um, let's let's choose a topic in science and take our journal and go to the park and study, whatever it is we're going to study. So I guess it depends on, what you're looking for. It can be overwhelming because there are so many options out there, but um, there are also, great resources where you can read reviews, and a lot of companies, I think, have a free trial,
oh,
so you can do some lessons for free just to try it out and see if that works for you.
mm-hmm,
So that would be, after assessment is looking at curriculum, and then I would really encourage everyone to find a co-op,
mm-hmm.
find a group to meet with. I know the moms that I meet with are just incredibly um, gifted intelligent women who just find every opportunity to reach out and to help and to encourage. And that's really important when you're homeschooling, because it can be a bit daunting to, you know, to think, oh, I have my child's education in my hands. I can't mess this up, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And
so it's,
I've heard people say that. Yeah. They're worried about messing it up. Yeah.
but so yes, find, and there are many, many support groups out there. Uh, and homeschooling isn't necessarily, religious. There is secular curriculum out there. I was looking at there's something called Charlotte Mason, and I was noticing that they have a sort of a secular version
Mm.
of that available. So really, just there are so many options out there, but
Charlotte
you can do
Mason.
this. I just want to encourage everyone.
Did
Yes,
you say Charlotte Mason? Is that
yes,
I've
that's
I've heard of that. That's why it.
mhm.
Mm.
So yes, you can do this, and it is possible, and you can succeed. And it's just um, when you're teaching your children and learning along with them too, it's just so it's very rewarding. It's very fulfilling. And it's just a wonderful thing. So um, encourage people to go for it.
Yeah, I think people really want to do it, but they're a bit trepidatious because it's um, a new avenue, a new area for them. But it's and I would too. They feel it's necessary right now, and um, I'm sure they'll appreciate your guidance. And I was wondering uh, if you don't mind, I know you're having some health issues,
Mm,
and I just thought you don't have to go in detail, but um, I thought it might be encouraging to some people to know that just because if you could talk a little bit about that, and that you're still able to do that even with having um, some pretty significant health issues.
right. One of the things that I'm struggling with um, hasn't officially been diagnosed, but one of the things that can happen is just incredible fatigue. Um, that's something that I struggle with from time to time. And there are those days, honestly, when um, I I struggle to get through.
Mhm.
I have just had to go take a nap. My kids are older; they're becoming more independent.
Mhm.
Also, some of our school is our courses are online, so we have online instructors. So they're watching a video and they are doing a worksheet. Uh, that's something that they can do even if I'm not right there with them.
Mhm.
Yes, it can be a challenge. I I feel blessed that we've been able to go ahead and do this anyway.
Yeah. Would you say that homeschooling is easier since you have health issues, or um, does it really make a difference that I'm thinking you don't have to go pick them up from school or,
I Yes, that yes, there are actually positive things, and things that are better
Mhm.
um, to or easier to deal with since they
Mhm.
are at home. So
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah,
Well, we've been praying for you and hope they find out something besides, I know how it is to not have a diagnosis. And uh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I'm sorry you go through that. But
I appreciate your prayers.
thanks. Are there any other things I've missed that you feel should be talked about?
they're not coming to mind right now.
Like when you go, uh, uh, when I uh, when I'm in a job interview or whatever, people say, "Do you have any questions?" At the end, I always say, "Yeah, I'll think of them as soon as we're done with the
Right.
interview and everything's over." Yeah. So, well, I really appreciate you doing this, and I think it's going to be encouraging and helpful, um, not only to some of the people here at the church, but to some other places, in some other places that are struggling with these questions right now and just really don't know
Mm,
to whom to they can turn. So I
yeah.
really appreciate you taking time to do this. So
Well, it's been my pleasure to talk with you, and thank you for reaching out to me.
yeah, and I'll see you at Thanksgiving. And do you mind closing with a prayer,
That would be wonderful.
if you wouldn't mind?
Would you like me to pray?
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, my phone
All
rang.
right. Lord, is that you? Okay. Right. Jesus, thank you for this day. Thank you for my dear sister. And thank you for um, your presence and the peace that you give to us, even in the midst of these turbulent times we're living in. Lord, I pray for everyone who might be watching this, Lord, that you would speak to their hearts, and if they're considering homeschooling, Lord, that you would give them strength, and uh, that they would know that they can do all things through you. We ask you to go with us, Lord, be with our nation, be with our children, our families, our loved ones. And we ask all these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. I love you. I'll
Thank you.
see
I
you.
love you too.
Okay. Have a good
Bye
day,
for
hon.
now.
Bye.